Hello and welcome back to the channel this week. This week's episode is all about back button focus and why you should be using it. I know for a fact that for me, it took me a little while to get used to using back button focus, but once I did, I never went back. And I gotta tell you that it took me a while. I was in the midst of the Canon system, and I was so used to the old Canon digital cameras. You had to do this to make the focus track, especially for sports. And I couldn't do it. So, but finally, my 7D Mark II was way better at it. And unfortunately, the buttons didn't really line up, so I had to reassign them. The 5D Mark III had one button that was specifically made for that. It was in the right place, but I didn't use that camera for sports. So I set it up back button focus to use it just so I could get great images. Now I got to tell you, the reason for this is because you can focus on one spot and then change your composition any way you want, instead of keeping your finger on the shutter button, and every time you hit the shutter button it's going to focus. Now you don't want to do that, and the reason is because it'll focus on something you didn't want to focus on, like the background or something else. Now the biggest problem here is that moving that little square around with the joystick, especially with Fujifilm cameras, is a big problem. It just takes too long to do that. Now it's so much easier to put that little square on somebody's face, back button focus, take your thumb off of it, shoot recompose and shoot the photograph. It makes so much more sense. Now, I'm going to show you a little demonstration right here of how you set it up on a Fuji camera, and it's pretty similar with all the other cameras in that you just have to shut off the AF for your shutter release, and it gives you an option usually, like it does in Fuji, for single frame and for continuous. And I got to tell you, I use it for sports exclusively because I can keep that thumb down and it's like a squeeze motion, which is how it was described to me back in the day. So let's get to this little demonstration here of how you set it up on a Fuji camera. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the wrench menu. Inside the wrench menu, we're going to go to button dial setting. And here we see shutter AF. And we're going to click on that. And you see AFS is turned to on. So that means that when you press the shutter button halfway, it focuses. So we want to turn that off. So we're going to go down here and turn that off. We also want to do that to AFC in continuous. And we want to turn that off as well. So then we'll just back out and we're ready to go. Now, I've got a little video here of how this camera, I don't know if this is going to show up or not. This is the XH1, and you can tell that there's a nice big raised button over here, but it's not for AF, it's for AEL. What? So I reassigned these buttons and made this one my back button focus button, and it worked really well. Now, my XT3, nowhere near as good at that. I got to tell you, the buttons are too far apart. One's way over here and one's way over here, and they're not set up right, and they're too small, they're not raised. Like this XT5 is great because it's raised right here, AF on, and it's raised. You can feel it with your thumb when you go to it like this. I got to tell you, it was life-changing to me once I figured out that I could hit that button, recompose, shoot the picture. And I didn't have to worry about the camera refocusing while I was doing that. And moving that box around with the joystick, yeah, it works, but it's a major pain in the neck, especially if your square is small and you're trying to hit somebody's face. Wow, it's a pain in the neck. Okay, let's see if we can do this. Now we're going to go over here. We're going to AF on button in the back. We're going to let it go. And we're going to shoot. Now we can do the same thing on the guy in the background over here. AF on, press it, let go, and there you go. So you can see how much easier it is and faster it is to use back button focus. One of the best things about using back button focus in continuous focus mode is that if you're at anything where there's a lot of movement going on and you're trying to follow people around, it's kind of difficult if you're just using single focus. So you need to use continuous focus. Let's say it's a baseball game and there's a kid at the plate and you want to make sure that the shots at the plate are in focus, but when they're running to first, they're also in focus. So what you want to try and do is you want to try and move that focus point over the kid, hit the back button focus, and then take your thumb off, shoot the pictures of the kid batting, and then when the kid starts running, hold your thumb down on the continuous focus as the person's running towards you and keep shooting. Remember that squeezing motion I mentioned. You want to keep your thumb in there and start shooting. So it's really crucial that you understand how back button focus works so that you can get some great shots when you've got a lot of motion going on and you want to isolate one thing or you want to get something moving at the same time. And quite often, you know, like for instance, I'm doing a nativity thing tonight, and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it on continuous focus because I know that when I'm shooting stationary objects, I can just push the button once, it'll focus, and it'll stop focusing. But then when people start moving, I can keep my thumb in there and on the back button focus, and it will get them in motion as they're moving. So keep that in mind when you're using back button focus and continuous focus at the same time. So for sports, it's great. It's very, very fast. And sometimes I'll use zone focusing, which is great. But when I want to use single point in the middle, that back button focus is just absolutely even better. Because you're really able to zero in on certain players. It really works great. And I wish I was shooting some sports so I could show it to you, like some hockey or something or some basketball, but I don't have any assigned this week, so unfortunately I don't have the ability to do that. So if you're on a tripod, then you can move that focus point around any way you want. You can either use the joystick or you can use your finger on the screen, which is a great way to do it. But back button focus is very interesting in that on Fuji cameras, when you have your camera set in manual, you can also use back button focus and it'll focus for you. I find that a very interesting feature, and I don't think any other cameras have that. So try that out next time you're using manual focus when you're shooting landscapes. Hit that back button focus and you'll find that it works really well. And once you have it zeroed in with that back button focus in manual, then you can tweak it just a little bit here and there. So I'm glad we were able to go through how to use back button focus, and I know you'll find that it's a much better way to photograph. Hey, thanks for dropping by the channel this week. I had a great time talking about back button focus and how it's revolutionized things for me as far as autofocus goes. You know, coming from manual focus for everything, it was a revelation anyway, but back button focus has made it even more useful to me. So if you wouldn't mind dropping a like, comment, and please subscribe to the channel, that would be great. And check out capeandphototours.com. We've got some things going on there. I would really appreciate it. And remember, it's not what you photograph, it's how you photograph it, and we'll catch you next time.